Everybody deserves education,
Yep.
access to education. We want to create that, affordability, all of those things, but we can never lose the heartbeat, never lose our Christ-centered mission. We're Christ-centered and we're student-focused.
Welcome to the Faith Forward Leadership Podcast, where we talk with leaders about how they cultivate a higher purpose in their companies today and perpetuate it beyond their tenure. I'm delighted to be on site today at Southeastern University with Dr. Kent Ingle, the president, and Dr. Michael Steiner, the senior vice president of advancement and innovation. Thank you guys for joining me today.
Oh, it's an honor and privilege. Thanks for asking us.
Yeah, I love the opportunity.
Well, I have loved what I've been hearing about Southeastern University and the innovation you've been doing and the growth you've been experiencing in Christian higher ed, which is no small feat. And both of you have been here about 15 years, and that is a significant time.
Right.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what's been going on those last 15 years. How has the organization grown, evolved, and changed?
Yeah, well, I guess I can start. 15 years. We've seen a lot of change for sure. We actually just celebrated our 14th straight record enrollment.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And the Chronicle of Higher Education just named us second fastest growing private liberal arts university in the nation up to doctoral level.
Yep.
So, that's exciting. But when we came here, the school was actually in decline. And they had gone 2 years without a president. So when you have a vacuum of leadership like that, organization suffers. And in this case, an educational institution suffers enrollment. They lost around 1,000 students enrollment. We're enrollment driven. You have a couple of more cycles of losing, you're pretty much going to close the shop. So it's a constant, enrollment's always going to be constant. So our job was to come in when I was elected and to build a team that would begin the process of turning around this university. And we did. We operate on what we call framework leadership, and I actually wrote a book about it. But we have 4 simple steps that help us guide transformational change. We started operating that way. The first step is the most important, and that is listening. And we conducted the largest listening exercise in the university's history. Had listening groups from every constituency, from community leaders, trustees, students, faculty, staff, alumni, just talking about it. We use the appreciative inquiry process, which is, you appreciate an organization rather than talk about what's wrong. We always want to start, what's wrong with it?
Yes.
What's great about it?
Yes.
And let's elaborate on that. So that's what we did. And we just started walking through that, auditing our context is number 2, clarifying our mission, our goals, number 3, and then aligning the vision. And what we discovered was focusing on 3 of the most important issues in higher ed today. And that is, are we providing students with great access to education? All different levels of education, from certification to AA degrees to bachelor's to master's to doctoral. And are we offering access to relevant need-oriented education? What does the workforce call for today?
Yes.
And are we providing the right programs? And then access also talks about delivery. How do you deliver education? One thing we started discovering early on 15 years ago is enrollments are going down, not necessarily because you don't know how to market your university, but less students graduating from high school. I mean, just all of these different issues, affordability piece. And started discovering students can't maybe come to a traditional campus like we have here in Lakeland, Florida, but maybe we can go to where they are. So we started looking at things like, how do we give better access? Then we focused on affordability. I can tell you, I'm a president that believes it's the responsibility of the university to drive down the cost of education. We shouldn't rely on outside entities, government to provide us with all the things we need so that we don't. And then if you do, you are beholden to another organization, So I felt like we needed to do that. So we started looking at ways to cut our tuition costs. One of the ways we discovered early on was how about we go out to communities across the nation and and partner with faith-based churches, organizations in those communities. What are your educational needs? Let us come and provide those opportunities, and we'll cut the cost of tuition by 2/3.
Wow.
So a degree here, I think, would tuition for the is like $27,000 just for the tuition. Well, we can offer that same degree at one of those locations for $9,000.
Wow.
Then, you add grants like a Pell Grant that's available for students, and that is not one you have to pay back. That's a grant. These students at these sites are, now they can graduate pretty much debt-free. We have, over 200 network sites, campuses, literally across the nation right now. So all of that, and then we focused on experiential education. How do we get students, while they're learning, to actually experience it in real time? Why should they wait till they graduate? So combining all those three, those issues helped us to begin to grow, and that's why we have grown. When I started, enrollment was probably about a couple thousand, and our enrollment this year was 13,644. So tremendous growth over that time period, and it's because of those very reasons.
And the big thing to think about is, these are all great strategies that we developed in, and you see how great they worked in hindsight, but they were developed from a core principle of our mission, which is to serve a community, right? To develop need-oriented education that serves the community. The network campuses was born not because we thought it was going to be a great enrollment strategy, but because we believe in serving the church. Education should serve institutions should come alongside, and we call it the gift of accreditation. Speak a little bit about your experience as a pastor.
So I was in television sports. I've had 3 careers, and I started out as a television sports anchor, was in that business for 10 years, and actually God opened great doors for me, and I made it all the way. When I ended that career, I was in the number 2 market of the nation, Los Angeles, television sports anchor for NBC. Thought, man, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Right. And so, but then God started, God uses experiences, things we go through to begin to speak to us about how he wants to use us. And felt led to go into ministry leadership. And so my wife and I went into Northwest Los Angeles, put a team together, and we planted a church there. However, my background was in broadcast journalism. Now I'm in ministry leadership. I need more education to make me a good steward of what God's doing in my life, So I looked for programs that had things like, biblical studies and practical theology and church history, things that I would need. And so I did find a program, but it made it a little difficult because I had to go and, to take class, but yet I'm working. And we put together a lot of team members who were business people who didn't have a lot of ministry. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be great if we could ask a faith-based university to come and do some kind of courses here, And so I went to all those faith-based universities in the LA area. I mean, we have some incredible ones: Azusa, Biola, Vanguard. You have Cal Lutheran, Cal Baptist, all these. And I went to a lot of them, and they couldn't wrap their mind. No, you have to come to us. And so, I thought, man, if there would ever, and I did. I remember telling God way back then, if I ever had a chance to affect this, where we could serve the local church with educational stewardship, because if you're going to grow, you need stewardship, you need education to help you continue to grow. And I thought, man, it would be cool to do this, never knowing down the road I would actually become a university president, which is a long story, because I went from being a sportscaster to a pastor to higher education. Only God can take somebody from being sportscaster to becoming a president. Yes. So that's a whole story in and of itself. But, it's that journey that caused us to make this commitment. As a faith-based university, we too want to serve the local church in developing leaders and providing that kind of stewardship. So that's what we've been able to do through these network campuses.
So the sum you get from this is our commitment to our mission and who we are is what has driven the growth. And when we look at so many institutions, I think that's one of the things that they realize is, they think it's the next gimmick or the next strategy, when it's like, no, fidelity to your mission,
Yes.
faithfulness to your mission is the secret to your success. And so if you want to know where to start as an institution, start with your mission.
I love that. And I love that I think so often leaders can start thinking about strategy and where we want to be in the future without really understanding their market
Right.
and the industry they're in. And I love what I hear you guys saying about really understanding what are the felt needs of those we're trying to serve.
Right.
How do we build up the local church as we do this and think through that? I'm curious to hear, were there any challenges you faced as you started to promote innovation at SEU? Because sometimes people resist change. I mean, I'd say often people resist change, and you're really doing some groundbreaking work in terms of how you're innovating within Christian higher ed.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, it's kind of a normal thing for anybody. You know, you get comfortable in what you do, and so anytime you disrupt that, it's always going to be. But again, I think we were faithful to follow a framework, a system that would help us bring understanding, would help us would define why we do what we do. Following those helped us to. We still had some resistance because it's normal, but I think it helped to not be a major or significant.
Well, and the big thing about the frameworks you have to understand is this is not like industry standard stuff. This is what is our mission and how do we actualize that. And so Dr. Ingle did something very unconventional. He created a college of unrestricted education, and we had a VP of unrestricted education.
Wow.
So the idea is, rather than trying to force a traditional structure to change, let's build a whole new structure that can incubate that innovation. And for the first, about 10 years of the work that we did in creating all this different stuff, it was housed in that one spot that then went out. And so over time, what happens is the new is so clearly better than the old that then all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, I want in.
People over.
Yeah, you want an in on that kind of stuff. And so, you look at higher ed, no one has a VP of unrestricted education.
Right.
That title doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, it was always fascinating. You go to college, seminars and things like that. Tell us a little bit about, and how have you grown? How, and we tell them, well, we have this unrestricted. Wow.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun to be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's disruptive innovation,
yes,
right? Clayton Christensen, building something outside, testing it, and then you're winning people over to this new model.
Yeah. And you look at a lot of organizations. They always want to look to someone else as the source, and it's like.
True.
That can work, and I'm not denying that there's great ideas out there that are awesome, and we've seen lots of universities over time adopt some of our stuff. But if it's not missionally aligned, right? If it's not tied to the core, if it's just innovation for innovation's sake, which is what we see a lot of people do, it doesn't get the legs. This is who our mission is, and we're going to build this new thing to accomplish our mission and go all in with it. And everybody else just come along, as you see the fruits of that labor.
Right.
So
I love it. I think this is a great example where you pivot, you do something disruptive to advance and propel a mission forward. I think too often, you don't want to drift from that mission, that higher purpose, but you do need to embrace change. Or else you might end up closing. You'll need to innovate to stay relevant. I would love to hear, with growth and opportunities, sometimes you can run into challenges related to staying on mission. How have your frameworks, or how have even your frameworks changed, or things change over time so that you can continue to scale this mission and have this growth aligned, mission advancement that you're experiencing?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's constantly communicating the mission over and over and over again. And we emphasize that every year. And one of the ways we emphasize that is I bring a phrase or a word where I've been, reflecting and asking God, okay, what is it in this season you want? How do you want to inform our mission in a specific way? So every year at the start of the year, I present, here's the word of the year.
Wow.
And we begin, and we have, so now we've had 15
15
word
words.
of the years, and we create a coin with the word of the year. And so now everybody has a collection of all these coins that can walk through our history.
Yep.
Wow.
We can literally tell the story by that word, and that word informs. So, for example, this year's word is unleash. We believe God is about to unleash our mission in a way that unleashes things that have held us back in the past, to unleash new opportunities, new provision, new blessing, but also to unleash his presence and power through our lives to accomplish our mission.
Amen.
So, we had at the beginning we have a big convocation where the students and the faculty and the staff and trustees, they all come together and we go through, what is the fresh word? Last year, it was fuel the fire, because we felt God was about to fuel things in our lives personally as well as organizationally. So you can go back and tell the story of how this university has grown. Didn't change our mission. It informed our mission. And so it helped us to kind of make sure that we're staying in tune with what's going on in our culture, in our world, in our organization, what is next. And again, it's all about formation. How are we developing our spirituality models so that we can discern where we need to be, so that we don't drift, or we don't get away from what is the core of who we are, and making sure we stay true to that. So I think those are some ways that we've done that.
And you mentioned in there how often these words are so timely. So last year, fuel the fire, and for the first time in the university's history, we were able to double our endowment. In 1 year. Didn't plan that ahead of time, but God knew what was coming, and then this year unleash, and now we see this dramatic change across our society, and all of a sudden you're seeing that word over, not just from us, but from major political figures talking about God's unleashing things in a whole new way. And it's just crazy how much, if you trust God, he will keep it fresh. If you trust him with that mission, trust to listen, to take the time to listen, to talk about it from there, you can keep it fresh. You don't have to have a stale mission. You can let it be refreshed every single year, as long as you're allowing God to speak into that community and what we're doing.
I love it. And it shows an example of how there needs to be this intentionality from the top of the organization. From you guys, you are listening to the Lord. You are seeking the Lord for that word, for that direction. Are there abiding kind of practices that help you guys stay, centered on the one, the audience of one that matters most, when there's so many voices in higher education, especially so many different voices and interested parties kind of demanding your attention?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing is weekly we do spiritual formation.
Yep.
Look to the word, reflect, talk about how it fuels our mission each week before we get into the agenda. The agenda. So I think that helps us to be centered on, again, what Christ has called us to do, what is our true mission. Bottom line, our mission here at Southeastern University is to help students discover and develop their divine design so they can serve Christ, they can serve the world through spirit-empowered life, learning, and leadership. We have to apply that to our context, because we're always growing in our divine design. You never arrive at that.
Right.
It's a constant, and so I'm every week, I start meetings out. The word is unleashed. So let's talk about, what does the scripture say, and how is that informing our mission, and how do we stay grounded too? So we do that. We also do I call it a new curve retreat every year, where we take intentionality, reflect on grounding, but also what's next, what's new. Part of what drives us, and I use this phrase all the time, we're always in process of building a map to a place we've never been before. Because organizations that stay true to mission are going to be organizations that will grow, because when you're on mission, that's part of the journey. You are going to grow and produce fruit. So, it's a constant mapping process. So we have to make sure we build into our discipline, into our systems, ways that help us to build the map to a place we've never been before. And that keeps us constant.
Yeah. One of the new things we're trying, and before I tell you that, I think it's a good point to hop on, is you should never assume that you can't do more to teach your mission, abide in your mission, showing that there's always something new you can try. There's always something new you can grow into. And so one of the things we've been working on recently in the last about 2 years is thinking about how does our mission reflect in our metrics and our finances.
Right.
Like how can we tie the two together to make sure the things that we're measuring as an institution from an operational financial perspective are actually aligned with the mission that we're accomplished. So I was actually just emailing Dr. Ingle a couple weeks ago about something we're developing called a missional scorecard. So how can we take that mission, to equip students to discover their divine design, to go out and serve Christ in the world through spirit-empowered life, learning, and leadership? How can I break that mission down into the core metrics that give us a scorecard that show us, here's how well we're accomplishing, that mission in there. And so I'm excited to see how it rolls out in our community. We're as a dashboard for everybody to see, for our board, and all to kind of outline it from there.
You should, for example, look at our budget and see our mission.
Yep.
Right.
That it should reflect that, and that's what we're doing. So I'm excited as to how we try to keep staying on track.
Yeah.
Right. And all this intentionality, it'll look different for different organizations,
sure.
but I think measurement is huge. I have to share an anecdote, though, because I could tell, they're doing something special here. I'm literally in the lobby, I don't know how many minutes ago, and I'm hearing students talk to each other about who they shared their faith with. And they're like, I don't know if they accepted Christ, but we did this and that, whatever. I'm like, this is amazing, because that's it. It's flowing all the way down, and you're unleashing this group of students into this world where we just need to be shining the light so brightly. So I can tell what you're doing is great, even just from being on the campus.
Thank you. Yeah, it's huge. You're here, I don't know when this will air, but you're here doing Missions Week. So this is our big, where students are reflecting on all the trips that they did. We send something like 200 trips a year. So they're reflecting on all the amazing things / preparing for the next round of trips and getting excited, documentaries and all that kind of stuff. So it's that's a normal thing for us, but also this is a special week where we're celebrating how God is transforming their work from all those experiences.
Right, and you're hearing from them how God is at work, which is so huge, because you want them to take that with you, with them after they graduate.
And what's great about what we do with missions, it's all student-led. Yep. So when we have all these trips that go out, we went to 40 different countries, I think, last year. We went to unreached tribes in the Himalayas all the way to the Arctic Circle of Norway. I mean, we went everywhere. But these are student-led, which is amazing. And you don't really hear that or see that. But we prepare our students so well, shape them, I think, so well, that they're able to do that. And it's just great to see them flourish in their design, the way God has called them. So
40% of our trips last year were to unreached people groups.
Wow.
And that was like a big passion for our students, is we want to go where the light has never been shined in all of human history. And so really, really proud of them for that.
I love that. And you're training them to be leaders. They're leading while they're here.
Exactly.
Before they're unleashed to the world.
And that's part of our intentionality in the whole experiential education. We want them to have opportunities to really utilize what God is doing in their lives. So when they do graduate, they're ready. They're going out into that field. They know what God's called them to do. I mean, if they don't know their divine design, then we failed at our mission.
Right.
So we've got to create all of those ways that will help them to know without a doubt. I mean, they come here, everybody wants a sense of value and significance. Where that's found is in the way God made you, the way He wired you, the gifts He's given you, the talents, the experiences He's put you through. But He wants you to discern that, discover that, so that He can utilize. We tell every student, you will be a solution to an issue, to a challenge, to a people group, something in this world that God wants to do. And He's chosen you to do that. So enjoy that journey. Discover it. Now is a great time, preparing for it, experiencing it, and then you're going to get to step out. And then you're also teaching them a system how to continue to discern God's, because we talk about all the time, we believe God gives you a divine design, or he gives you a call, but he's going to place you in a variety of roles that help you to fulfill that call. So I look at my own life, as I mentioned before, I've had 3 careers. Well, I can tell you every single one of those careers definitely tied to what I believe my calling is, but they were all different roles. So you have to discern that. And so that's part of discovering your design and developing it, is learning how to discern, creating a frame in your mind that helps you to always know how God wants to use you in your call.
That's so good. I'd love to hear this leadership journey for you guys as leaders of this growing organization. This is a heavy lift, right? This is not easy to do, to lead a growing, thriving, healthy, profitable, sustainable organization advancing this higher purpose. How have you guys seen God at work? What has encouraged you along this journey?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, again, you heard some of the stuff that's happened with Word of the Years and how God really kind of speaks in the moment from there. I remember during COVID, which all of us like to pretend that is a big black hole, big black painful hole, but that was really a huge test for us all, globally. How close are you to your mission? How close are you sticking through it? And I remember, the same principles that we had been leading up to the point, the frameworks all of a sudden became alive, right? When all of a sudden you really, you had 3 paths and only one of them were really going to lead you through this thing. How did you determine it? And the frameworks that we set up allowed us to be like, yes, we can know we can go this direction because this is what's gotten us here through that point. And so you saw the wisdom of that, and now we're coming through the other side. So God's even pouring out even more blessing for us. I think those are some of the times you really got to sense what God's been doing for us.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just hearing the stories. You just mentioned, hearing students talk about how they've shared their faith and with who, and I think, that's the fruit. What is just seeing the fruit come to life in people's lives. We don't want students just to leave with degrees, but it's not about the diploma hanging on the wall. It's about stepping into God's purpose and to hear them, to see it in their eyes, the joy they have about what they get to do, what they're going to do. So seeing it lived out in alumni, seeing it lived out in pastors, business leaders, teachers, nurses, entrepreneurs, men and women bringing Christ into a space. And not only hearing from them, but just like you telling us what you heard just being here. We hear it all the time in the community. We look to hire Southeastern students just because of who they are and what they, what radiates from them. They're, the fruits of the Spirit. There's love and there's joy and there's kindness and they're different. They're unique. And I think that's what for me is kingdom impact. And when I see kingdom impact and I see that fruit, wow, to me, that's what makes me go.
That's so good. Well, as you are faith-forward leaders, what have been some key lessons learned along the journey? Because you're on the cutting edge of innovation. This isn't easy to do. Have there been missteps or things you've learned from? What have been some of those key learnings along the journey?
Yeah, I think we are learning a lot. We're learning right now that this is why we're talking about the measurement. If you don't measure things, right, sometimes a lot of the stuff you assume happens or you assume would happen doesn't often happen. And if you don't have a way to capture that learning and adapt and grow for it, you don't adjust. So perfect example, during COVID, we thought one of the biggest risks to our institution was going to be the traditional campus, right? Because you ever heard, all these different things, stay at home. turns out we're in Florida, so great place to be through that situation. And we were able to, our traditional campus and operations in Florida really thrived. But our networks, especially on the West Coast, in places that were really shut down, like California, those churches and those organizations were hit so hard, so much harder than any of us really could have anticipated. And so it was one of those things where if we hadn't had a great way to measure that and capture that, we would have been floundering. Like, where are we missing it? What's going on? But because we were very intentional at the head time of measuring those things and keeping at, we were able to adjust, pivot, and now try and reinvest and redeploy to bring health to those kind of things. And so oftentimes people are just I know for us, we've experienced one of the lessons I've learned in leadership personally is you assume things are happening. You assume things are happening the right way. But if you don't have that actual data measurement that confirms your hypothesis, that confirms what's happening, you're just shooting in the dark.
Right.
And you don't have to. And that's the thing is I think many times leaders just think that they have to. They think that they have to accept that they don't know. But if there's one thing I've learned from Dr. Ingle is you don't have to accept any of those premises. You can go in and get what you need to make the actual decision that'll be best for the university.
That's great. Those feedback loops are so important, and the reflection process. It's one thing to collect data. It's another thing to actually review it thoughtfully and make sure you have those ongoing cadences. So I love that you guys have that built in.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think for me, and I talk about this with the team a lot, making sure personally you take time to develop yourself holistically in the process of what you get to do. So think about your spirituality, your mental health, your physical health,
right.
The things that are so important in your life, because ultimately we want to please God in the way we do life every day, and that has a lot to do with how we are holistically growing in our lives. So make sure that you do everything you can to slow down in that process to make sure that you are growing, you are learning, you are developing your life in ways that, for me, that's how I build my discipline daily. I mean, when I get up, I go to the gym, I work out, I do a cold plunge. I do things that I've got, if I don't do that,
right.
I can, and I honestly, and to be honest, I had an early wake-up call after I left my first career and went into ministry. My activity life changed a little bit, wasn't as fast-paced as television is, and I started gaining some weight, and I went in for a routine, and the doctor said, "You have type 2 diabetes."
Wow.
And you've got but you can hit it head on right now by exercise, by diet, and by taking good care of yourself. You won't have to take insulin if you stop right now.
Right.
So from that moment on, I realized again how important physical health is to carry out what God's called you to do. So that's kept me disciplined in that area to make sure that I don't allow that to get out of control.
Oh, my goodness.
So those are things I've learned. I think the other thing is you can never not listen enough. I mean, listen. Make sure you're in tune. Before you begin to make decisions, and you've listened, and then auditing that context, doing everything you can. For example, one of the early things we did was to start growing our co-curricular, growing athletics here. When I started leadership, there was only, I think, nine athletic teams. I think we have 21 athletic teams now. Okay. But one of them was football. We discovered during our listening, we should start football. I mean, it's almost religion in Florida, football is. And so, this town doesn't have its own college football team, and there's just lots of things that can build culture in many ways. And so we felt like maybe that was something to do. it would have been easy just, okay, let's start football. In fact, we saw a couple of universities after we made an announcement, we're going to start football. Some other universities in our area said, oh, we're going to do it too. But what I saw in theirs was, boy, they just wanted to jump the gun and do it without taking time to understand the logistics of what all that means. I'm grateful. We did all kinds of, feasibility studies. We went to a school that was similar to ours that started. How did you build the program? What did you learn? What would you do different? One of the things we discovered early on from another university was the worst mistake we could make was not building a stadium on campus. By having a one off campus, it didn't really develop the kind of culture that you could with that kind of a program. There's something about tailgating on the campus and all those things. And so because of that, we decided we're going to build our own stadium. And you see that when you turn on to our campus, the stadium up front and center. So things like that. So I think that keeps us, making sure that we're doing it.
I love that. I love the listening approach, listening, feedback loops, collecting data, not neglecting your personal health, doing cold plunges, which is something I don't think I could ever do. But doing those things to be intentional, and those intentional rhythms, both organizationally and individually. I love that.
Love it.
I'd love to talk and hear you guys talk about the legacy of SEU. When you think about the university 10, 20, 50, or 100 years from now, what do you want that legacy to be? What do you want to be true about SEU then?
Yeah. It's interesting you're asking that question. So this year is our 90th year at existence as an organization. So we're 10 years away from a centennial, which is huge milestone for a college that started as a small Bible college and has grown into this full national presence on that part of it. And I think the legacy that we get to talk about is that stewardship of God's call of helping students discover how God has created them to be. So much of the conversation around college today is around workforce and experience and cost and all that, which is all incredible things and so much stuff that conversations we need to have. But I think in the middle of that, we can also appreciate the fact that the time frame from a person's life from 18 to 22 years old is the most pivotal time of their life. It's the time where they start their families. It's the time where they understand that they are a person separate from who they were raised for, created by God to do something unique. And that is such an honor and privilege to steward that time of life. And if we take seriously that our job in that time of life is to form someone into a relationship with God, into the likeness of Christ, that's the legacy we can leave, is to being that kind of institution that does that.
Well said. And it's hard to think, 10, 20, 15 years, because we only think in 5-year terms. That's we're trained around here to, because again, as you've talked about, things change, and you've got to make sure you understand the times and what's going on so that you can stay relevant.
Right.
But obviously, I want to make sure that after we're long gone, it is a university that continues to create access. Everybody deserves education, access to education. We want to create that, affordability, all of those things. But we can never lose the heartbeat, never lose our Christ-centered mission. The number two things, we're Christ-centered and we're student-focused. And I hope that 50 years from now, people will look and say, well, that's a university. When I see students graduate, they are so in love with Jesus.
Yes.
And they serve him faithfully. And they're living out their calling, and they're doing it in a way that honors God. And that's, to me, the greatest story that can be told as to who we are and what we do.
Amen. Yeah, the legacy will be lived out through those who come through these doors, and that will continue to live on in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining me today. It's a privilege to hear more about what God is doing through SEU, and I just pray that God will continue to bless you both as you lead, continue to bless this organization, the alumni, and all the 200 campuses around the country. It's a privilege to talk with you. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. It's a privilege to be here, and thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for letting us share.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this was helpful in your leadership journey. On behalf of On Mission Advisors, if there's anything we can do to help you better define, protect, and champion what matters most in your company, please reach out and contact us. We'd be happy to help you as well. Until next time.